Welcome to another edition of Waiting on Books as part of the WO 2016 group series. I'm Suzanne van Rooyen and I'm the author of this book, Scardust, which is a new adult science fiction book from Entangled, and it's available now. It released in February, and I'm going to be answering a couple of questions that's all about this book. Question 1. What's the story about? Well, this book is about a young man called Raleigh Williams who lives in the fictional town of Dead Rock, Texas, and he's pretty troubled. He has a history of juvenile delinquency. He's always been in trouble with the law and kind of had a hard time growing up, and he has this dream of going to Mars because he promised his brother that he would sprinkle his brother's ashes on Mars. So that's his big dream, to become an astronaut. And this dream gets a little bit more complicated because one night he sees what should be a meteor, and when he goes to the crash site expecting to find some cool outer space artifact, he actually ends up finding this naked guy who's all beaten up and scarred, and he tries to help this guy. And in trying to help this guy, who ends up being Crow, Raleigh discovers that he and Crow share this kind of cosmic connection where they start remembering things from each other's lives, and that of course gets all kinds of complicated for the characters, and the story unfolds from there. I can't really say much more because it's stepping into spoiler territory. Question 2. What inspired this story? A lot of things, really. My family used to live in Texas and I was almost born there. So I have this kind of, yen for Texas in a weird way, and I wanted to explore more of this place that my family used to live. So that's what inspired the setting, really. As for Raleigh, well, there was a boy I used to know in college, and a lot of this guy is in Raleigh. And I used to dream of being an astronaut, and I'm endlessly fascinated with Mars and with this Mars One program where they're planning to send people to actually live on Mars and kind of start a human colony there. So all of these different ideas kind of came together and became the story that is Scardust. Question 3. Describe your MC in 5 words. So I'm going to describe Raleigh, and he is, of course, really intelligent because he's a super sciencey, geeky nerd. He loves Frank Herbert and a lot of classic sci-fi. And of course he wants to be an astronaut, so he knows he's got to be smart to do that. He's very self-deprecating though. He has a hard time understanding his self-worth, and he has some self-confidence issues. The guy is really determined though, and really resilient. Considering what has happened to him, which you will discover if you read the book, he really shows a lot of grit and determination, sort of having this major dream of getting to Mars and becoming an astronaut, considering his life and where he comes from. And for that reason, I'd say that he's also really stoic. He gets punched quite a lot by life, and he still manages to get back up and go after the things that he wants. Question 4. Am I a plotter or a pantser? I started out as more of a pantser, and as I got into writing more complicated, complex novels, I realized that pantsing it just wasn't going to work, especially when you're writing science fiction and fantasy and you have to world build and create these really intricate, complex worlds. Just pantsing my way through that wasn't really working. So I became more of a plotter. I wouldn't say that I'm strictly a plotter these days. I tend to start out with something like a 7-point plot structure using the 3-act structure, and I get a sort of general idea of where my story is going, and I try to develop character arcs, so where my character's starting and where they're hopefully going to end up by the end of the story, and then start to kind of jot down some ideas of how they make it through that story arc. And that starts to give me plot as well. So that's kind of what I do before I get into the story, and then I constantly revise that as I have new ideas or as the characters do something that surprised me. So in this way, I like to consider myself more of a hybrid plotter pantser. what research did I do for the book? Well, this book being set in Texas, and obviously I haven't lived in Texas, but my family has, I had to do a lot of research about Texas. I spoke to people who lived in Texas. They gave me all kinds of anecdotes about their life, specifically Panhandle, Texas, which is where this book is set. I watched a lot of YouTube videos. I listened to some radio shows from the area, and watched some movies that were set in that part of Texas just to kind of get a feel for the environment and what these places are like. And then my main character, Raleigh, is part Comanche Indian, and so I was researching that specific Native American culture. And obviously I wanted to do that justice. Although it's not a huge part of the story, I wanted to get what I do mention correct. So I spent a good amount of time researching the few things that I wanted to mention that, you know, just show who he is in terms of his Native American ancestry. Oh, quite a lot into mental illness and the psychology of what happens to Raleigh. I can't say anything about it because that would be a spoiler, but I researched a lot about that side, like his psychology of what he's going through and what he's been through. And then of course I researched all about Mars, which was really, really lots of fun, and then I would get completely distracted from what I was supposed to be writing for the day, and I would just be like following all these tangents on the internet about Mars. And I learned a lot about Mars and about the Mars One program and about what living on Mars would actually entail. And after doing all my research, I'm definitely not going to be volunteering for the Mars One program the way that Raleigh does in the book. Next question. My favorite scene. I have a lot of scenes that I really enjoyed writing for one reason or another. There are a couple that like completely broke my heart to write, and I weirdly, perversely enjoyed writing those. But they're not my favorite scenes. I think my favorite scenes would have to be all the kissing scenes, because writing those is tons of fun, and as a reader, you know, reading the book again, like those were the scenes I looked forward to because they were generally happier scenes in what is a pretty dark book. And then I enjoyed the kind of like the downtime in the story where Raleigh got a chance to breathe, because the rest of the book is quite intense and, as I said, pretty dark, so Raleigh doesn't get much of a break. But then he gets these moments with his family where, like, these really tender, special moments, and I really enjoyed those. So those are some of my favorite scenes. Last question. What types of food would my protagonist and antagonist be? There isn't really an antagonist in the story in the sense of like some arch evil villain that Raleigh has to fight. So I'll do what types of food the two main characters are, which is Raleigh and Crow, because the book is in dual point of view and it tells the story from both of these guys' perspectives. So Raleigh would definitely be a burrito. It's his favorite kind of food. He really likes junk food, and a burrito is a bit spicy, like he can be. And there's a lot going on in a burrito, lots of different layers and flavors and mix of all kinds of different food, and that's totally Raleigh. He's a really complicated, complex guy. Whereas Crow would be a Greek salad. A little bit salty because of the feta and olives. Mostly healthy. Kind of crunchy. I think that's Crow. And he has a thing for health food in the book as well. He's definitely the more health conscious, fitness conscious one out of the two. So I think that's a good match. Burrito and Greek salad. The question actually also asks what kind of food I am, and I have absolutely no idea. I've really been struggling to come up with something, and I want to say like peanut butter cupcake, but I'm not sure that I really fit cupcake. Maybe just peanut butter, because that's my favorite food. Does that count? I'm not sure that I can choose to be my favorite food. Any parting words? Just a huge thank you to everybody who has already read Scardust and written reviews in all the various places. I am endlessly grateful to you and appreciative of any and all feedback that I get on my writing, of course. To anybody who hasn't yet, read Scardust and is interested in maybe trying out romance with a pretty strong sci-fi bent, and if you're not afraid of reading a little bit dark and gritty, then I think that you'd enjoy this book. And if not, you might just want to buy it to look at it, because this cover is seriously stunning. There you go, up close. I wish I could take credit for it, but this is the art that Entangled provided, and it is just amazing. I absolutely love it. I just want to stroke it. It's so pretty. Yeah, that's it. Thanks for reading. Thank you to all the people watching. I hope I entertained you. And yeah, check out the rest of our books on our channel. Bye!